access these dollars. You've caught us at kind of an interesting time because we haven't finalized our recommendations. As I said, those recommendations are coming by year end. It's a dynamic group. There are lots of different ideas. There are lots of different agendas. And we're sort of in a constant juggling act, trying to one, identify all the obstacles and problems that we might be facing from a state perspective, and also create what we're calling them actionable responses, things that the state can actually do to help alleviate some of these problems and help work around some of the obstacles. So what I'd like to do, just real briefly now, is sort of highlight some of the problems that we've identified, and then talk about some of the solutions that we're proposing. But keep in mind that this is an ever-changing list, and as I say it, it's probably out of date. We've certainly identified that there's a need for a universal sustainability policy throughout the state, and I think that there are federal livability principles that are common sense, and the state is looking at perhaps adopting those so that all agencies would operate under the same assumptions. But really, this is a matter of speaking common language, developing a common language that all the state agencies can use to incorporate into their functionality, but so that we all know what each other's talking about when we say sustainability. That speaks to some of the institutional barriers that have been identified. Our state departments are very siloed, and it's hard working from IDA to work with the DCEO, our Commerce and Economic Opportunity Department. It's difficult to bridge those gaps. And I think that can deter interdepartmental coordination, and interdepartmental coordination is a crucial point in accessing federal dollars on the state level. The federal government has been bridging EPA and HUD and Department of Transportation. They've been working together, and it's now time the state responds similarly, and it's difficult because of these institutional barriers. Regional capacities. We need to enhance our regional capacities in order to allow for a more efficient delivery of funding and information. What we struggle with on a state level is bringing funding down, trickling it through our different regions. There are regions that IDA uses through community action agencies who serve a specific county, and there are other regions that Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity uses that serve similar counties, but not necessarily all the same. Bringing all of the funding together to a specific region is difficult, and flowing the information of what funding is available from the state level down to a regional level or a local level is difficult. We need to work on sharing our information, what funding is available, what opportunities are available, and making sure that the people who we want to access those funds and who need to access those funds know about the applications, know about what funding is available, and how to apply for it. We're sort of new to the game of regional coordination, and at least on a state level, we don't have an accepted best practices or technical assistance program, and that's certainly something that we're needing to look at. The best practices would help in terms of looking at this is how one community has accessed these funds. How can a similar community access these funds? Or any kind of technical assistance program is always important in terms of teaching and inciting accessing of funds. And in terms of sustainability and in terms of bringing funds from the federal government down through the state to regions, there aren't too many programs that are spotlighting that, at least from our perspective. So in terms of solutions, and this is where it gets tricky, the state agencies that have been participating in the linkages working group have, as I mentioned, we've been looking at actionable and accomplishable solutions. I think it's easy when you're talking in a vacuum, and about theoretically bringing funds to a specific region or to a theoretical region. It's easy to look at pie in the sky solutions, but when you're talking about actual federal dollars and state dollars and how those funds will be dispersed, you need to get specific and actually have reasonable goals that each agency can enact. So what we're looking at in terms of bringing a universal sustainability policy into the state for the state agencies to adopt is we're looking at agency appropriate sustainability guidelines. While we may have a common philosophy and adopt that common philosophy, what would work for IDA in terms of integrating that philosophy into our funding practices may not work for another state agency. So we want to leave it flexible for each state agency to bring the universal philosophy into their funding practices or into their operation practices. Department of Transportation has context-sensitive solutions, and IDA has a low-income housing tax credit qualified allocation plan. These function in very different ways in terms of how we allocate, in terms of dictating how we allocate our funds. But IDA can incorporate the sustainability guidelines into our competitive scoring criteria, and that would work for IDA, but it might not work for another agency. So we're looking at specific ways to make this a flexible yet prioritized solution for each state agency to look at. Interagency coordination is crucial. As I mentioned, a lot of the state agencies are very siloed, and while we all track our own investments, the sharing of that tracking between agencies needs a lot of improvement. We were talking about brownfields. I look at brownfields as a perfect example of a place where you could develop in future years affordable housing. Knowing now what brownfields may be available for future affordable housing development would be a great way to look at how we can pair different funding sources from different state agencies and how we can coordinate our investments. But that it seems logical, but that sort of coordination is not necessarily easy from a state agency perspective. We're also looking at ways to logically pair funding sources from different agencies with each other. We currently coordinate with Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity with some of their energy efficiency programming dollars and use it with our housing development and redevelopment dollars, which makes sense. Energy efficient windows go with affordable housing. That makes perfect sense. That's a logical pairing of funding sources. But that's just one logical pairing, and there are many others. Service dollars can be paired with housing development dollars, and this is something that we've been looking at for years and haven't fully been able to realize the potential of that kind of coordination. The working group has also been pushing for a universal information clearinghouse, and this is something that we're still working out, how this would work, how we would fund it. But we would be looking at maybe a website or an extension of my office's current activities. But the idea would be to have a one-stop shop for applications that could be coordinated together and information that goes together. So a regional entity or local entity looking to access these federal funds may be able to go to this website, see what federal funds are available, see what state funds work well with those federal funds, and apply for it all in one place. I've mentioned that we're looking for actionable and accomplishable solutions. This doesn't seem too actionable or accomplishable to me. This is that's very high level. It would be great if we could get that accomplished, and perhaps we can find the funding to do it. But this is what I mean. We're working out the details now. And again, we need to look at different ways to enhance our regional coordination. We look at the regional entities as key in this equation. Regional entities will be accessing the funds directly from the federal government. The state will support that access with what funding and technical assistance, whatever we can do. But there needs to be clearly defined regions throughout the state. As I mentioned, what works in one agency doesn't work with another agency. So we need to sort of look at how those regions can be recalibrated or realigned in order to better access federal dollars. And also, the regions need to tell the state what they need from us. We're able to work throughout the whole entire state. We don't just serve Chicago. We don't just serve urban areas. We serve rural. We serve downstate. We serve Chicago. We serve everywhere and throughout the state. But we're getting very kind of the mixed input from what would be helpful from the state, and how the state could help out in terms of accessing dollars. And I think one thing that is clear is that while the state needs to figure out how to better coordinate, the regions do as well. And I think that everything else can kind of be covered in the question.